Hong Kong plays a central role in educational technology in Asia. We're going to talk about that and more next on the EdTech vlog. So I'm here in Hong Kong to do some work around digital citizenship at an international school here. And this isn't my first time here in Hong Kong. I've been here a number of times because it really is a hotbed of international schooling, education, and educational technology for Asia, which then of course makes it a hotbed for the entire world. So what I want to talk about today is what are the unique elements about Hong Kong, and why is it a point of focus whenever we talk about educational technology worldwide? So for those of you that know, Hong Kong is kind of unique on the world stage because it's both part of a large country and its own entity. So it's technically part of China, which means it has this great conduit directly into the largest market in the entire world, the most progressive education system right now, as I said in the previous video. And it has this cultural connection that allows companies and schools and education to have an interesting inroad into China, which is a great position. But I don't know if you know this, they are actually also what's called a kind of a segregated administrative region, SAR. I think that's what it stands for. I could be totally wrong, don't get me wrong here. But as a separate administrative region, they're under a different set of laws and a different set of rules than in mainland China or PRC, the People's Republic of China. So because of that, they actually have more connections to kind of their Western roots when England ruled this island or set of islands. And the connections to those Western approaches and Western cultural elements are still very much alive here. So it's this crossroads of kind of East and West. It's also well geographically situated to connect to all of East Asia, Southeast Asia, and even Southern Asia are all in very easy flying distance from Hong Kong. To boot, it also is, it's not overly expensive. So there are other areas of Southeast Asia and East Asia that are actually really, really expensive to meet in or do work in. The cost of living, while it's high here in Hong Kong, is not so high that you couldn't have like conferences or meetings or do some interesting things educationally that are a little bit more challenging in those other areas. And this is why educational technology is so strong here, because there's such a strong connection between these cultural elements, these different approaches to schooling, and with the price points and geography, it makes it an ideal place to try things and to make conduits into these various places. So let's talk about the details of Hong Kong itself around the education system, and I think you'll get a better understanding of why technology takes such a strong hold. So first off, there are the public Hong Kong schools. These are government-run schools that are an interesting mix of kind of the Chinese approaches to learning, which are more traditionalist, and this movement towards more westernized, globalized approaches as well. So you have this very nice mix of these two different approaches to learning, which means that when you're trying academic technology or learning technology, you're able to meet Eastern and Western cultural ideals within this space. There also are quite a number of schools here publicly, because it's an island of like 8 million people, and that number could be totally wrong, but let's use it for now. So 8 million people, you can imagine that the school system is pretty diverse and pretty large. So when academic technology, educational technology, or IT systems want to get into schools, they try it here because it's a large enough base to try it out, and it allows you for an understanding of these kind of diverse approaches to learning. On top of that, they also have a number of schools groups. So the most notable one is this thing called ESF, English Schools Foundation. And the English Schools Foundation controls or influences a whole vast amount of schools that are kind of running under the old way that things were running in here prior to 1997, where the Hong Kong was under English rule. And the English school system came in and started all these just amazing schools that are running like Cambridge and English National Curriculum, following the key stage models and the sixth form sort of thing, if you've heard that sort of terminology, if you're not familiar with it. And that gives you a great opportunity to connect with a schooling system that's actually the most popular across the world. There are more Cambridge schools than anywhere else, if you don't count kind of the national systems. So within this schools group of the ESF, you have an opportunity to try EdTech within a very diverse population of learners using the most common curriculum framework, which is just fascinating. And then, because there are so many expats and so much diversity of people here in Hong Kong, there are a number of international schools as well. And they come in all flavors. These really big ones that have real rich experiences and large budgets. They're kind of these startup little ones, mom and pop shops that are doing special little things and are looking to grow. So you can try academic technology or learning technology in that space as well. And they're doing all number of curricula or approaches to learning, which really makes it a very fertile ground. So think about it. Think about all these wonderful things that are happening in Hong Kong. You have this diversity of approaches to learning. You have a large amount of students and schools, and you have conduits to everywhere in Asia, including China. So it's a great jumping off point to Japan and Korea, various parts of Southeast Asia like Malaysia or Singapore or Indonesia, even as far to the west as India or Pakistan or Afghanistan, Myanmar, and sometimes even up into Russia. So this geographically provides a great opportunity to do experimentation and access for all of these localized entities at a decent price. So because of that, there are a number of things happening here from inside the local schools groups. The international schools have this great combination of people and resources to do things. And as I mentioned, school groups like the ESF are able to try things that you really don't find in this geography or even in parts of like North America or Europe. So you'll find things, and I'm going to date this video a little bit by saying these things, but like Maker Ed and virtual reality, different approaches to learning that are more personalized. Those things are starting here, and then they're kind of bubbling outwards and people get to see what's going on. Because of that, there are also a number of startups that have begun in this region, specifically in Hong Kong. There's funding for these items. Like I said, there's a fertile bed of experimentation to try out products, and they're growing inside the region. So if you're really looking for some inroads into EdTech, into Asia, you don't jump into China, you don't jump into Singapore or Tokyo, you got to come to Hong Kong. And there's a couple of events that you might want to come into or people you want to connect with. I already mentioned the ESF and they're gold. You have to talk to them and see the things that they're doing. There's also an event called 21st Century Learning, which is one of many conferences that are happening here. Some of the conferences are like short little summits, like a Google summit where people are meeting up of schools in the region. There are vendor fairs, like expos where various products come in, and you'll see that they're very linguistically diverse, hitting various dialects of Chinese and English and other languages in the region. And then there's this conference called the 21st Century Learning Conference, which is really valuable because it thinks about the forward elements of learning with a history of EdTech. So it kind of started as EdTech directors and practitioners in Hong Kong specifically, and has grown to draw people around the region that use technology for learning, yes, some of them, but are also looking forward into more of what are the next steps around learning to prepare students for the 21st century, for university and beyond, right? And so you have this great combination of people that think about this fertile ground, talk about what technology can do, and have influence in the entire region. And there's not many places outside of Europe or North America where you can have such diversity of opinions, of products, of approaches, and this really broad web of folks coming together. So if you're interested in learning more about EdTech in Asia, start with Hong Kong. Hong Kong is a wonderful city. It's a wonderful jumping off point to any journey within Asia, and it'll give you a flavor of what's happening in other parts of the region here and why there's so much money and so much excitement coming into the educational systems here, which should, if my math is right, influence a greater part of the world pretty soon. There is so much stuff happening in Asia and going so fast, and it starts here. So if you get a chance, come to Hong Kong, check it out, check out some of those resources I talked about, do a little more research on your own, contact me, whatever, but learn a little bit more about Hong Kong and go a little bit deeper. So hey, do me a favor, subscribe to my channel here and we'll talk more about other places that I go as I'm doing my work around the world. I've talked about China, I'll talk about other places, and I'll talk about other technologies specific to this region and regions around the world, which is just fascinating. And follow me on Twitter. My handle is @MattHarrisEdD. And we can talk about any number of these things like my digital citizenship work or strategic planning, or really talking about the globalization of educational technology. Hey, thanks for listening. Have a great day. Talk to you later.